If you can understand this podcast comfortably, your English is probably around the B2 level. At the B2 level, you're no longer just talking about basic topics. You can discuss ideas, explain your opinions in detail, understand longer conversations, and talk about your goals, challenges, and experiences more naturally. So today, I'm going to walk you through a typical day in my life. Pay attention to the vocabulary, the expressions, and the way ideas are connected. Let's get started. My alarm goes off at 6 every morning. I'm not naturally an early bird, but over the years I've realized that waking up early gives me a sense of control over the rest of my day. Instead of rushing out of bed, I usually spend a few minutes stretching and mentally preparing for the day ahead. I've noticed that the way I start my morning often affects my mood and productivity for the next several hours. After that, I make a cup of coffee and sit by the window for a few minutes. It's one of my favorite parts of the day. Everything is quiet, there are no emails, no meetings, and no distractions demanding my attention. It's just a small moment of peace before the day becomes busy. While drinking my coffee, I review my schedule and organize my priorities. I used to create extremely long to-do lists. The problem was that I would only finish half of them and then feel disappointed. Nowadays, I focus on the tasks that will have the biggest impact. I've learned that being productive isn't about doing more things, it's about doing the right things. Around 7:30, I leave for work. My commute takes about 30 minutes. Some people spend that time scrolling through social media. Personally, I prefer listening to podcasts, audiobooks, or interviews. I see commuting as an opportunity to learn something new. By the time I arrive at the office, I already feel mentally engaged. My job requires a lot of communication and problem solving. Every day brings different challenges. Sometimes I have to work with tight deadlines. Other times I have to deal with unexpected situations that require quick decisions. A few years ago, situations like that would make me feel stressed. Now I've become much better at handling pressure. One thing experience has taught me is that worrying rarely improves the outcome. Preparing, adapting, and staying calm usually work much better. Throughout the day, I interact with many different people. Some conversations are straightforward. Others require negotiation, patience, and careful listening. I've come to realize that communication is one of the most valuable skills anyone can develop. A lot of problems can be solved simply by listening carefully and expressing your thoughts clearly. At lunchtime, I try to step away from my desk. In the past, I would often eat while working. I thought it was making me more productive. In reality, it was just making me more tired. Taking short breaks helps me maintain my energy and focus throughout the afternoon. After lunch, I usually tackle the most demanding tasks of the day. These are the projects that require deep concentration. I've discovered that motivation is unreliable. Some mornings I feel highly motivated. Other mornings, I don't. That's why I learned to rely more on discipline than motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline stays. Once work is over, I rarely go straight home. A few evenings each week, I go to the gym. Exercise has become an important part of my routine, not only because it keeps me physically healthy, but because it improves my mental well-being too. Whenever I finish a workout, I feel more focused, more confident, and more energized. The gym has also taught me an important lesson. Progress is often invisible at first. You put in effort every day, you don't notice much change, and then one day you suddenly realize how far you've come. I think the same principle applies to learning English. Many learners underestimate how much progress they're making because the improvement happens gradually. But every podcast you listen to, every article you read, and every conversation you have is moving you forward. After the gym, I head home and prepare dinner. Cooking has become one of my favorite hobbies. There's something satisfying about creating a good meal after a long day. It's also a great way to disconnect from work and focus on something simple. Later in the evening, I usually spend an hour reading. I enjoy books about psychology, business, personal development, and history. Reading exposes me to new perspectives and challenges the way I think. I believe one of the best investments you can make is investing in your own knowledge. Before going to bed, I try to avoid looking at my phone. It's not always easy. In fact, I'm still working on that habit myself. Instead, I spend a few minutes reflecting on the day. I ask myself what went well. I think about mistakes I made. and I consider what I could do differently tomorrow. I found that small improvements repeated consistently can completely transform your life over time. People often look for dramatic changes, but success usually comes from ordinary actions repeated for months and years. Eventually, around 10:30 or 11, I go to bed, and then the process starts all over again the next morning. So, that's a typical day in my life. Now, here's my question for you. How much of this podcast did you understand? Did you follow the main ideas? Could you understand the vocabulary without translating every sentence in your head? If the answer is yes, there's a good chance your English is already at the B2 level. And if some parts felt challenging, that's completely okay. Growth happens when we push ourselves slightly beyond our comfort zone. Keep listening, keep learning, and keep challenging yourself with more advanced English. Thank you for spending these minutes with me.